Hello, my name's Julian Edgar, and I'm the author of this book, Designing and Building a New Energy Efficient Home. What I want to cover in today's video is why house layout is important. The shape of the house when you look down on it, its footprint, and where the rooms with different functions go within the house. Let's take a look. So you want to build a new energy efficient, comfortable and healthy house in Southern Australia? Well, house layout is one of those key aspects to get right, and it's one of the things to think about from the very beginning of the design process. There are two aspects. One is external footprint, the shape of the house when you look down on it, and the second is internal organisations, where rooms with different functions go within that house envelope. Let's start with external footprint. So we've seen in earlier videos that we want the house to be orientated north. We want the face of the house that looks north to have lots of windows on it. That's so we can get that winter sunshine in to warm the house. So we therefore want the northern face of the window to be large. You can't fit lots of windows into a wall which is only small, can you? You need to have a large wall on that side. Therefore, a rectangular house that is aligned east-west achieves that. Now, as with everything in this video, you don't have to follow precisely what I'm saying. You don't have to have a rectangular house with a large northern face that's aligned east-west. But if you start with that idea in your mind and then modify it to suit the site, modify it to suit your preferences and so on, you'll be on the right track. Whereas, in contrast, if you decide to, at the very end of the design process, suddenly say, well, we need lots of windows on the north, it's going to be too late, it won't work. We also want what's called a high volume to surface area ratio. Now that sounds very complex, but all it means is we want lots of volume, lots of cubic metres inside the house compared to how many square metres of walls and ceiling we have. Why? Because the more wall and ceiling area you have compared with the volume of the house, the more heat loss and gain will occur, because heat loss and gain occurs through the walls and through the ceiling. So we have three houses here, A, B and C. Each of them is 100 metres square. Same size and therefore same volume because the ceiling height's the same. But the surface area of the walls and ceiling vary depending on the shape of the house. A, the rectangular or square box, has only got 400 metres square of surface area. B, just with that little change to that corner, goes up to 430 square metres. Remember, they're all the same size houses, so the volume's the same. And C, with that indent, goes up to 470 square metres. C will lose and gain 17.5% more heat than A. So what we want is we want a relatively simple footprint to the house. The more corners you add, the more indents and changes to shape, the more heat loss you are going to get and heat gain compared with the volume of the house. Now, if cost is important to you, and it's important to all of us, isn't it? Then every corner you add to a house will also increase the cost, the construction cost. Why? Well, it needs more labour, it needs more work. So if you think about the concrete slab, every little indent, every little change of shape is going to require more labour on the formwork. If you consider the framing of the house, every change of shape, every corner will require more effort in the framing, even the plasterboard, even in some houses the wiring takes longer. So a simple footprint and a simple rectangular footprint gives you lower cost and best energy efficiency all along with a good northern aspect. Now, as I say, you don't have to follow that, but if you start with that idea and then modify it, you'll be well ahead of where you otherwise would be. So here's an example. This is a simple rectangular house. It's actually a transportable house. It divides into two halves and goes on a truck. But it's an example of a simple, effective design. It'll be low in cost and it'll be highly energy efficient because of its fundamental basic footprint. We still need to do all those other things that I've talked about in other videos. We need to have sufficient thermal mass and so on, but the starting point will be very effective, and that's what I'm covering here in this video today. All right, but what about inside the house? Now, inside the house, where you put the different rooms will also have a major impact. Now, on this diagram, north is downwards. On the northern side of the house, we have maximum light space, living areas, recreation areas. Where you live goes on the north of the house. In the middle of the house, we can have evening spaces, bedrooms, family rooms, the spaces needing the most stable conditions. And on the east, because there's east over there, we can have morning spaces like kitchen and eating. So when the sun's rising in the east, in the morning, it's lighting up those spaces. You know, you have breakfast watching the sunrise, things of that sort. But what about on the south, the furthest away from the sun all day? Spaces needing the least heat and light, sleeping, utility, storage, bathrooms, things of that sort. Now, if you start with these ideas, again, you're going to be on the right track. You might say to yourself, well, I want one of the bathrooms, say an ensuite, I want that to be on the north. Well, that's fine. But if you start by thinking, let's try to group living spaces towards the north, and let's try and group utility spaces towards the south, you'll be right on the right track to achieving a good outcome. Next slide, here it is. There's another thing as well. We saw this house in an earlier video. It's a rectangular house, it faces north, but we saw a problem, and that problem is here in the middle of winter at midday, all those northern windows are shaded because the veranda is too deep. But what about where things go? How is this house relevant to that? Remember these windows? These windows are on the west. They therefore get the afternoon hot westerly sun in summer. But see this big shed here? If we had put that big shed on this side, spaced away from the house, just like it is on the east, then we would have shaded those windows in the late afternoon. So you can use external structures to provide buffers or shading. Even if this house had a built-in garage, a garage under the main roof, having it on the west would have been better than having it on the east. So think about where rooms go from a buffer point of view as well, in terms of providing, say, shade or providing an extra layer of insulation. Again, it's where things go within the house, and in this case, around the house. The final one I want to cover is zoning for heating and cooling. I talked in an earlier video about how when you've got good thermal mass in your house, it provides even and diffuse cooling throughout the house because it's absorbing heat from the air in summer. And it also provides diffuse and even heating in winter because the heat is coming out of that thermal mass. But I also said there may be times when the thermal mass becomes ineffective. It reduces in what it can do after, say, 5 days of hot weather or 5 days of cold weather. And in that case, you would want to have some artificial heating. But in this case, why do you want to heat the whole house? You don't typically. You want to heat your living areas or where you are. And then that brings us to the next point, the ability to shut off interior areas of the house. If you have a room that you're not using, it can be as simple as shutting the door. So you're not heating or cooling space you're not using. But you look at some house designs and it's nearly impossible to shut off areas of the house because it's also completely open space with no doors. And that is something to consider when you are designing your house. Do we want to be able to shut off different areas, especially for heating and cooling, but also for privacy and also for noise and things of that sort? So keep that in mind also when you're doing the internal layout of the house. So here's a plan of our house, our passive solar home. In this diagram, north is down towards the bottom. And I just want to take you through some of the functions of the house. Again, you don't have to copy what I've done. You don't have to follow any of this, but I'm just showing you the way in which we've gone about it and some of those ideas that underpin it. So north is down here. Therefore, it is a rectangular house that is aligned east-west, east over here, west over here. We can see across the northern face of the house, we have a lot of window area. Big sliding doors, a big window, a single sliding door with double glazed, double panels. Big window, and again, big sliding doors. So there's a huge amount of glass area across the northern face of the house to get that winter sunshine in. There is an eave that overlaps over above those windows to stop summer sun coming in. Now, inside the house, across the northern face of the house, we have a living room, we have bed 2, we have what we call a common area, which actually joins. It's a T-shaped room, which incorporates what we're calling a gallery, which is like a wide hallway, but it's all one space inside the house. We have my home office, and we have the reading area of the library. So the 2 end rooms go all the way from the north to the south, all the way from the north to the south. That means that heat, sunshine, air can flow right across that room. So even though the sunshine in winter gets only about halfway across, that's still over 5 metres into that room. And of course, the whole room will be heated by that winter sunshine. Here, because the common area joins the gallery, the sunshine shining in that room will heat that whole space through the middle of the house. My home office is where I spend most of my daytime, so that also is in that sunny area. And bed 2 doesn't fit the narrative, but that was a space where we had to put it. On the south, we have laundry, bath, ensuite, where it doesn't really matter. We also have the master bedroom, and we have a room we're calling a storeroom. Now, this house is a little unusual because we also have a southern reflector panel that reflects winter sunshine into the master bedroom, reflects it into the storeroom, and reflects it into the southern window of the library. So this room here, the library reading area rooms, get sunshine in the northern windows in winter, but also get sunshine in the southern windows in winter from that reflector. That reflector doesn't work in summer. It's shaded with its own eave. Now, on the east, we have a 5 metre deep veranda. It's a covered deck, and that stops the sunshine coming in these 2 windows. It only comes in for about half an hour after it rises above hills and then before it goes above the veranda, and therefore these windows are shaded early on in mornings. And over here we have what we described and saw in another earlier video. We have a water tank there, a rainwater tank, and we have a screen and porch there. And that shades this window, which is actually a glazed door. It shades that in late afternoon in summer. I'm not showing this just for you to say, wow, that's good. I'm just showing it to you as an example, applying the things that we've been talking about. So good passive solar design, orientation. Where do the most windows face? And they should face north. Shading. We want shading of those windows. We want shading of those northern windows. We want shading of eastern windows. We want shading of western windows. Ventilation. How do we get good air to breathe? How do we get good air to cool ourselves? How do we get good air to cool the thermal mass, which is the next point? The thermal mass absorbs winter sunshine and then feeds that heat back into the house in winter. In summer, it absorbs heat that we then get rid of that night. And the house layout, the shape of the whole house and where things go inside the house to make most of everything else we've described. These don't need to cost anything. And in fact, a simple rectangular house will be a lot cheaper than a complex house with lots and lots of corners. I've seen recent examples of houses with over 16 corners. Obviously, a rectangular house need to have only 4 corners. You don't have to have only 4 corners, but having 16 or 20 corners is just crazy stuff from a point of view of losing heat through walls compared with the volume of the house, and from a point of view of increasing cost. Passive solar, it's about good fundamental design and not the sticking on of technological band-aids when the design has been finished and suddenly there's all these shortcomings that you can see. The book's called Designing and Building a New Energy Efficient Home. It'll be out mid-late 2026 after I've got a full year of logging of temperature, of radiant temperature, of humidity, of dew point, of thermal mass temperature, of as many things as I can actually log in that house to show its true performance, not just subjective performance, but its true objective measured performance. I have data for spring and summer so far, and it's going very, very well. Thank you.